What's up? I'm Renzo. Uh, I've been DJing for 15 years. I go by three different aliases when I DJ. One is Frezno, that's more for the aggressive, like rave music, like really hype stuff. The other one is Galliani, more groovy, uh, smooth, like house music style. And then there's a third one, which is Gunter, spelled G Hunter. And that one's rarely on flyers. Sometimes it just happens, it shows. And that's more of like an interesting take on the performance side of DJing, where I'm trying to make the crowd uncomfortable on purpose, but eventually have like a release of tension that kind of serves as a payoff and makes it really cool. We are at Pub Dubs, Small Room Big Sound. This is the underground every Friday night, 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. We are not a cult. Do not let them lie to you. So if you're visiting South Florida for the first time, there's a few spots I think are essential for the experience. One thing you got to check out is like an Oscar G set. That's like the most Miami experience you're gonna get for house music, live percussion, tribal house, all the classics. Like usually you'll hear them in the night. Usually Mondays at Koyo are pretty cool for that. Club Space, 24-hour liquor license. Headliner gets on at 4 a.m. Crazy energy all through the night into the morning. That's a very unique Miami experience. In Fort Lauderdale, I'd say Club Chemistry is a good experience if you're into like rave stuff, and Pub Dubs for the underground. Growing up in South Florida, you hear all sorts of music, from Hispanic music to a lot of like the 90s classic booty music, freestyle. But I think the overall theme in Miami is people like to party. There's amazing party music you hear that comes from South Florida. And I think going into DJing with that mentality is very different than people from other cities, because you learn to appreciate the flow and the selection sometimes more than sounding perfect. Like a lot of DJs from other cities are very uniform, robotic. Personally, I think a Miami style or South Florida style is something that's just 100% focused on the energy, just having that nonstop party. So growing up in Miami, you hear all sorts of stuff. South Florida, Broward, you got booty music, freestyle, all the Spanish music influences. But I think the common theme through all of it is just the energy and the fact that people like to party here. It's great uh, stuff that came from here, and I think just the overreaching theme is the energy you find at the parties. Like South Florida loves to party, so I think when I'm DJing, that reflects, because sometimes I'm more focused on the pace of the mixes and the energy in the songs versus exactly what genre they are, or what style, subgenre. And I think that's important for the dance floor. Comparing that to other cities, in other cities, you have very specific, tight, robotic almost sounding mixes, which are technically beautiful, but that doesn't represent the feeling of a South Florida party. So, I mean, a big difference between other cities in South Florida is here you are competing with the reggaeton club, the Caribbean club, the hip hop club, and it's so many options for people. So, the people who do end up coming to an EDM night are really about it and they love it. So, I think that brings a very unique energy. Maybe it's a smaller room, or maybe it's not as big of a production as you would find in other cities for underground stuff, but the the crowd is what makes it. I think my most memorable set, my one of my favorite moments in my career playing in South Florida was my first set at Dare at the pool for the nighttime pool party with Lux Prima. uh, it was special because everyone I'm friends with, people from my past, even like my old business partner Gio Andres, everybody was there. My mom and my aunt from Peru, who happened to be in town, came to hang out, and it was just like a big party that included everyone that would be at a private party in my backyard, except at one of the coolest like buildings in South Florida, which is the Hard Rock Hotel with the guitar. So from when I started doing this in hosting shows in 2012, there wasn't many options as there is nowadays for EDM, and EDM was more of just a grouped up idea of electronic music. It was harder to find all dubstep nights or all drum and bass, or if you're into a specific niche of it, it was harder to find. Nowadays, that's very, very common. Uh, and I watched that evolve because when I came into the scene, it was just like, oh, we're going to a rave. And at that rave, you would hear all sorts of music. Dubstep, that's the biggest change I've seen happen to South Florida. Uh, at the beginning of my run doing events, we were one of the only promoters booking dubstep DJs regularly. We had a few at like Full Moon in 2012, and it was a handful here and there. But once we hit 2014, we really felt there was a niche that wasn't being satisfied, edgier, grittier part of the demographic that likes EDM, which is more like the rhythm and the tear out. Uh, People thought we were crazy when we were doing all dubstep shows, but from there to today, we ended up growing that movement along with lower levels, One Up Productions, and a few others down here. We ended up making it all the way to Club Space at the ground, collaborating with Cirques Records and Powerhouse, everyone that was in the scene at that time doing dubstep. We were able to do rhythm at Club Space. That was groundbreaking. And nowadays, it's just something you see common. Like even the bigger clubs, you see underground dubstep shows all the time. It's very accepted. When we began, for a club to let you do a dubstep night, it was very rare, and it was very hard to convince them to let that happen. It was almost like they had to be on the line of maybe the business failing to attempt that. But now Insomniac is in the market, and we have giant headliners spoiling us every weekend. So it's pretty cool. Another big change in the scene I've seen is uh, just the influence of geek culture, nerd culture coming into the mainstream. Nowadays, you have anime shows, just nerdcore shows with locals that are popular in that scene that will slam 600, 800 people into a venue. Locals who are a part of this community, that's a beautiful community. The, in my opinion, the most artistic, welcoming community of nerdcore, geek culture, anime, video games. Help just a bunch of friends getting together and doing a show will bring hundreds of people, and it's just makes it a lot more interesting for EDM because you don't have to spend $10,000 on a headliner to have a fun show. Like you can just get together a bunch of friends who like to play video games, who like to cosplay, and do stuff like that, and it becomes a movement. And that's also moved into spaces like Revolution or other giant venues down here. And that is something I've seen in South Florida take off that I haven't seen in other cities yet. And I think that's one of the rare times where the South Florida nightlife scene is ahead of the rest of the country. Shout out to the Pub Dubs team, the intern, always making it happen, rocking the lights, amazing DJ, Chomps grinding, doing whatever's needed. Megan, curly hair psycho, killing it, always on the promo, and just her overall influence on everything, just the heart she brings to it. Elric, our resident DJ, one of the best you'll find in South Florida, versatile, any style, hit him up. He'll play your show, he'll rock it for you.